Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for being here today. Kicking off your week with Caverly Morgan and this beautiful daily meditation series that she's been offering for weeks now. I'm Janice, and I'm here to welcome you. I'm a colleague of Caverly's, a dear friend, and a huge fan. To give those of you a brief introduction of Caverly Morgan, if you're brand new, she's a meditation teacher. She spent 8 years training in a silent Zen monastery. She's been offering meditation and awareness practice for the last 2 decades. She's a nonprofit leader. She launched the nonprofit Peace in Schools in Portland, Oregon, and she's the creator of Presence Collective, which is a platform, a collective of meditation teachers from all different backgrounds and wisdom traditions. She's also an author, a dog enthusiast, and just really passionate about liberation, social justice, and transformation. So welcome back for those who've been practicing with Caverly for weeks now. And if you're just joining us, welcome. Sangha Live is the platform that makes all this possible. The thing I love most about Sangha Live is that these teachings are made truly accessible to people all over the world. You can say good morning and share where you're from. In the sidebar here, we have people tuning in from California, Jerusalem, Brooklyn, truly from all over. So if you have the ability to support the continuation of this platform and these offerings, there's a green button right below me, offer donation, dana, the practice of dana in the Buddhist tradition. It's just this generosity. Please consider donating what you can, if you can. This is not possible without your support, so thank you. I want to make one special announcement for those of you who are also big fans of Caverly and want to have an even deeper experience with her today. Caverly is part of the Being and Doing Summit, and the theme for that is practicing in the midst. It's a free online event today and tomorrow. So at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this event launches. So please check that out. I will drop the link in the sidebar afterwards. But again, that's today in just a couple hours. And Caverly is hoping, as those of you who've gotten to know her, she loves to be in dialogue with people. So that's a platform where you can directly ask her questions. And she's hoping that people will come on and make it more rich in that way. So I'm going to bring her on.
Hey, Janice, thank you.
Yeah,
as always, thank you for your service. Friends, hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, just depending on where you are. I'm so very glad to be here. Welcome back. Yes, do join me today if you can. I'm they put some marketing forward for the summit that I'm part of today, and it's the marketing said, "Watch me live." And it's like that is so not how I would have said it. Call and engaged with me might have been something that I would have said. But I would love to have anyone who's interested in the conversation. We'll likely be talking about collective liberation. I've had many conversations with Jeff, and he's delightful, and that's where the conversation tends to go. So please do join us if you can. And hello from the amazing irises of our yard in Portland, Oregon. Happy spring to us all, and happy Mother's Day to that within each of us that mothers. All right, we're going to move into our meditation. Before we do, take this moment to settle in. Pause to maybe roll the shoulders or Stretch the arms. Hello, Christine. Thank you so much for writing in and saying hello, friends. Julian, welcome back. Erica, hi from Oakland. Linda from the Oregon coast. So take a moment to listen to the body. How might you want to respond to your observations? Just allow yourself to have this sort of pre-meditation moment of settling in, be part of the meditation. Notice any habit to think of meditation as something that begins when the bell rings. It'll serve us most in our lives if we shed that narrative. Meditation is simply the experience of being knowingly ourselves. It has nothing to do with a bell, although I have benefited greatly in my own practice from structure and regular practice. So I'm supportive of structure. For those that are new, welcome. We'll be sitting for half an hour, and then I will invite folks to come on screen and have dialogue if you're open to it with me directly. You can also be, check out that there's a ask a question box below and then a sidebar that you can write questions in. All right. I invite you to take 3 of the longest and deepest inhalations and exhalations you've taken yet today. And now bring loving attention to your self-talk, to any internal dialogue that may be present. Simply notice, what am I saying to myself in this moment? And then again, without judgment, notice the effect of whatever that internal dialogue is on the body and the mind and the energetic system. So simply take note. If I'm talking to myself about what's wrong, for example, there's going to be very different byproduct of that conversation in the body and the mind and the energetic system than if I'm not engaged in that internal conversation. Of course, that doesn't mean it's bad or wrong to be having that conversation. Simply notice it. You are in choice about whether you identify with that conversation. You need not be confused that that conversation is you. Someone asked me recently if I had a favorite grounding practice for meditation, and this is a simple visualization that you can use whenever you like, whether you're sitting on a meditation cushion or not. And just visualize a large gold spiral above the crown of the head. And as you inhale, draw the gold spiral in through the crown of the head, bringing it into the center of your being, and then exhaling the large gold spiral out and down into the earth. And then repeating, inhaling the large gold spiral through the crown of the head, drawing it into the center of your being, exhaling the gold spiral out and down into the earth. And just repeating that for 1 full minute. And now releasing that image and simply noticing the space between the thoughts. Picture waiting at an intersection and a long train slowly passing. Perhaps your habit is to focus on each car that passes. In this moment, keep your gaze on the space in between the cars. Just notice with curiosity when the attention clings to one of the cars and runs off with one of the cars. Maybe it's a bright color, maybe it's shiny. What thoughts are you most likely to cling to? Maybe the ones about worry or regret. Simply notice. And then return to attending to the space. The Quakers make reference to the still small voice within. Without hunting for that voice or creating that voice, as you attend to spaciousness, simply be aware that that voice, which often isn't coming in words, might be speaking. How does the voice of the heart communicate without words? Simply notice. Simply listen. Lovingly give your attention to that which is often not seen, not heard. Not recognized. If the mind consistently moves away from today's invitation, latches onto stories or narratives, breathes life into strong emotions, that's not a problem. Stay with whatever's being whipped up. Don't fall for the story that you are that which needs to change it, fix it, make it go away. Simply keep coming back to this invitation to notice and attend to the space between the thoughts. again and again. Return. Friends, thank you. As most of you know, this is my time to remind you to donate if you're able. Green button below me. As Janice mentioned, this platform exists solely through your support. So thank you for giving as you're able. And if you're not in a position to give at this moment, no worries. It's one of the beautiful things about how a donation-based platform works. We take care of each other as we're able. So thank you. Friends, I'd love to be engaged with you directly this morning. If there's anyone who'd be willing to come on screen and join me, have a conversation about your practice in this moment. Sharon, you would like to attempt to come on screen. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Janice, thanks for bringing Sharon on as you're able. While we're waiting for Sharon to come on, I'll just read Spencer. Good morning, your comment. I'm going to turn up the light on my screen just a touch here. Okay, great. For years, I've tried to find the space between thoughts, mostly unsuccessfully, and the space between worlds, which always seemed even harder to do. Today it was obvious that the space is not between the thoughts or words. Oh, words, not worlds. It's not the space that comes and goes as thoughts come and go. It's the space from which they arise and has always been here. Yes, that's one of the reasons I appreciate that metaphor of the train, Spencer, because the space in between the cars is not just being inserted. It's not it's not something that comes and goes as the cars of the train do. Yeah, so thank you for acknowledging that, Spencer. It's an important clarifying point. It feels very different if we it's easier to grasp for something when it's impermanent. And this space that we're referring to today doesn't come and go. Thank you. Kiki, this practice was challenging because I felt like I had to pay attention to my thoughts in order to catch the spaces in between. Kiki, at some point, it'd be interesting if you were able to come on screen because I do have a follow-up question for you. Thank you for writing in. I wonder if what you're exploring, you're saying it feels challenging because you had to pay attention to your thoughts. Well, first I'll just say this. If you're truly sitting at an intersection and a train is passing, do you have to pay attention to the details of every car in order to know the space in between the cars? That's an important place to look. So question, I think that's the main thing I'd like to point to. Question the assumption of have to. Is that true that in order to know this space, you have to pay attention to the thoughts in detail? Now, this is the part where it would be interesting to have you on screen, because what I'm curious about is if you've been seeing your meditation as, oh, finally I get a break from thoughts, so I don't have to see them, or, I can just sort of shove them aside for a little while, which temporarily we can ignore what the mind is doing temporarily. It's not a sustainable practice approach, but temporarily we can ignore, certainly. So if what's being revealed to you is that that's something that's been happening for you, then it's actually quite useful to see, I don't have to ignore these train cars. The space is unaffected by the train passing through it. I don't have to try to get rid of the train. Anyway, Kiki, I'm riffing a little bit just based on not knowing exactly where your question or your comment comes from, but I appreciate that you're writing back in. I kind of gave up and just rested in the refuge and felt better, just observing the thoughts coming and going. Lovely. So observing the thoughts. Now, as a practice, come back to the space that is unchanged by the movement of the train. Allow the attention to rest there. So you rested in the refuge, and that's actually That is actually the byproduct of the prompt to see the space between the thoughts, to recognize that space, to know that space. So if you experienced that through a resting of the attention or a relaxing of the attention, beautiful. As you know, Kiki, because you've been on these calls, that's actually often how I'm framing it, is resting the attention, not necessarily like finding the space between the thoughts. But what I love so much about practice is that there's so many different doorways in, and language resonates differently for each person. So Kiki, you've learned something, I think, important about what resonates for you. I would suggest that it's not that you gave up, it's that you let go of the trying aspect of the quote unquote assignment. And yes, maybe the instructions seemed literal, or you took them in a literal way. That's worth noting as well. Thanks for writing that in. Kiki, thank you. It's always lovely having exchanges with you. Okay, Sharon, I'm sorry. I see that you're trying and you're in an exchange with Janice about it. I'm not going to read that now, but I'm sorry. I can see that the result is you're not able to get on this morning. Debbie, I also found it difficult. There didn't seem to be very much space between the thoughts. Sometimes in practice, it seems there's more space than others, and that leads to more thoughts. Yeah. So this is useful, friends. Okay, Sharon, you asked your question in the box. Thank you. I'll come to it in just a moment. This is useful, friends. When you say sometimes in practice, it seems there's more space than others. I think what's important about what you're saying, Debbie, is it seems that there's more space than others. That's a very, very important insight, because that's absolutely accurate. The space that we're referring to in this practice, in practice at large, is not a space that comes and goes. And you all are supporting me. That's something that I want to make even more clear if I use that prompt again. So picture the space of an open field in which a train passes through. It doesn't matter if there are 1,000 cars on that train. The space of the open field doesn't come and go. There's not more of it on Tuesday than there is on Monday. What is the case is that it can feel as though the space is changing because of the nature of the activity of the cars. So if I'm on a camping trip and I'm out in nature and I've been unplugged from technology for 3 days, if we were to go with this analogy of the train, it might seem as though there's no train, or it might seem that there's one quiet train that passes slowly through that just has, in the train, the cars of the trains like don't have anything on them, and it's just the sort of base platform. So a lot of emptiness. But again, that hasn't changed the space of the field. It's really important to recognize this, to understand this, because you can feel that our habit in practice is you can feel it on this call, the habit in practice is to try to adjust the train and then base how our meditation was off the train. So that's why I liked Kiki's language of, I gave up. Again, I would suggest that what Kiki did was just let go of the trying. And in that letting go, rested. And in the resting, you're not resting in the cars on the train, you're resting in the open field. Thank you. Okay, Sharon, your question. Caverly, thank you for reflecting the hook I was having regarding my practice on Wednesday night. I have another hook question. And for those that are new to this call, just know that on Wednesday nights, I offer a time of shared practice through Presence Collective. And we do it via Zoom. So it's very easy to come on screen and have conversation on that platform. So if you would like to join me there, please check out those details via my website, caverlymorgan.org. Sharon, I find myself frequently rehearsing what I want to say to someone. Is there anyone on this call that can relate? Yes, we do that, don't we? We are conditioned to rehearse what we want to say. I think this is valid to an extent. I don't want to be totally unskillful, but I'd like to be more present in actual conversations. Sharon, absolutely. How present can I be if I've rehearsed my conversation with you 1,000 times, or even 2 times? Then, Sharon, when I'm in an interaction with you, I'm going to be referencing the mental experience, the visual of what I assumed the conversation would be. I've always laugh or chuckle about this notion that, how often have I rehearsed for something in my mind only to find that the other person that in my mind I rehearsed with didn't play their part in real life. So I had this rehearsed maybe argument with someone, and then they come together and they say something entirely different. So your point is incredibly important. There's never a reason to rehearse for the moment. Now, preparing for something is different. The question, though, then becomes, can I prepare in this moment? Can I prepare not with the idea that I'm trying to lock in something that I hope I can repeat later? But can I prepare? Can I be intimate with what's here now? For example, let's say that I'm an improv actor. There's much learning and practice that comes with being a good improv actor. There are games you can play with your fellow actors. There's ways to prepare your skill as an improv actor. But you're not preparing what's going to be happening when you're there with the other actors in front of the audience. During the rehearsal, you're preparing actually to be fully present and responsive to each other, so that when you're in front of other people, that's what can come alive. Now, some of you might be saying, yeah, but what about a scripted play? Same thing, actually. So there I am, I'm practicing. Even if I'm practicing a scripted production, the production will have the most life kind of oozing out of it if what's oozing forward is presence in the actual production, rather than here's a rote recording of what we did before. Because what truly has life in it is presence, not the repetition or the attempt for repetition of what's been. So thank you. Eric, hold on, let me overthink that. Great. Oh, good, Richard, you rehearsed being enlightened. Very good. Yeah, preparation. Yeah, and so I'm Richard's a dear friend, and I happen to know that he's potter. So pottery would be another example. One can't sit down at a potter's wheel and just make a bottle. Okay, that's a form that requires skill. I have to pull up the walls of the pot. I have to be able to narrow the nape of the neck. But my my practice at the wheel, when it's a present moment based practice with the clay, will shine through when I'm making the pot that I want to make for my next big show, the pot that I really want to get, quote unquote, just right. But I won't be replicating the exact form that I practiced per se. Now, we could get into the nuances of being a production potter, but I would still suggest that the best pots are pots that in which the potter, in a sense, gets out of the way. That what's shining through the experiences is presence. As someone who has thrown pots myself, I can feel it when I pick up a pot, and I can feel the maybe the constriction of the maker having tried to control the clay or control the experience. I invite you to pay attention to that too. Pay attention to handmade things. You can feel the energy, if you will, of what went into the object. So thank you, Richard. Debbie, lovely about the potter. I'm a musician and it feels similar, beautiful. Yeah, I don't think of myself as a musician, but I absolutely understand how it translates. It translates actually, I think, with all creative process. Have you ever tried to write something, but you were writing something based on referencing what your conditioned mind said this piece of work should be last week, rather than again, getting out of the way. A mentor of mine once said to me, when you go to write, what comes when you're trying to write is not yours to write. What comes when you're not trying to write, that's yours to write. Friends, thank you. So, Rivka, thoughts come in multiple forms: vision, words, memories, voices. How do you look for spaces between all that? Again, so Rivka, I just scrolled up and saw this comment, and perhaps now it feels like it's been addressed, I don't know, but remember, this looking for space, what we're doing is we're allowing the attention to settle in the space that's already there. I can hear that this particular analogy might have been tricky for many of you, and that's good feedback for me, so thank you. Look for space might not be the best way to say it. And as those of you who've been on the call with me know, I often talk about resting in spaciousness, or relaxing the attention, or releasing the attention in awareness. And that kind of relaxing and resting, releasing might be easier for many of you to access the way in which space is primary or fundamental, that open field that's unchanging. Look for space might make too much of a form out of space. And so again, this is useful. So if for you, look for space, and what matters is what resonates for you. So I could talk about cutting up cabbage, and if that brings about, if that brings on Richard's enlightenment, wonderful. I'll keep talking about cabbages. So it's really, if we're paying attention, everything can enlighten us. Everything can bring an experience of recognizing our true nature. Anything can. So you might, Rivka, look to see whether for you, looking for the space between the thoughts, or looking for space, makes space, it turns space into another object. So here's a car, then here's the space, then here's a car, then here's the space. That that won't necessarily be useful, or that kind of looking for something as if it's a form itself won't be useful. The space we're talking about again is the space that I'm going to let go of this train thing. So the space that we're recognizing is the space out of which visions, words, memories, voices, all the things you named arise. So hopefully that's a clarifying distinction. Friends, thank you. It's lovely to be here again, as usual, with you. Really appreciate shared practice. And do join me, please, today for this Being and Doing Summit, or I think it's called Practicing in the Midst. And there are also details for that on my Instagram page. Please do follow there if you'd like. And yeah, Janice, looks like you posted a link somewhere in this thread. Yes, Janice posted a link if you scroll up today at 10:30. Yeah, so it's a live conversation we'll be having, and I would love to have your voice come into the conversation. Thank you, friends. See you tomorrow, I hope.